fix that. There we go. Hey, so I know that, again, talking about narcissistic women can be touchy, it can be a tricky topic, but we have to remember the narcissistic mother. Okay, when we are talking about narcissistic women and people feel like in romantic relationships, women are being attacked and women aren't being, are the victims or whatever. Remember that there's such a thing as a narcissistic mother, and that narcissistic mother had a partner who she abused as well. So today, what we're going to talk about here is narcissistic mother and the creation of the golden child. So let's see. The woman in the power, the mother of a family, has a certain emotional power, and emotional strength, and emotional control, so to speak, of the family. Any mother in a family, that is the nature of a mother, is that people look to that mother for the emotional, nurturing, caring support, right? Of course, fathers are these things too. I'm generalizing here just to keep this video from being really long explanations about things that aren't necessary. Okay, so we know that there are attributes of mothering, of motherhood, of caring and nurturing that goes into being a mother. When you have a narcissistic mother, you don't have these things. So what you have instead is a controlling and very victimizing, manipulative woman who is out for herself and herself only. And what happens is that the way that a narcissistic mother works, and fathers as well, but today we're going to talk about mothers. So if you had a narcissistic father, don't think I'm forgetting you. I'm just talking about the moms today, okay? And more importantly, the golden child and what happens there. So basically, the narc mom, okay, she is the director of the delusion that she has going on. She's got this delusion about everyone else in her family. Each child, when they're born, is assigned a role, pretty much. I mean, I don't know if it's exactly from birth, but it happens pretty quickly in life, where each child is given a role. And that role is meant to serve her delusion about the world, the way she sees it and the way she needs things to operate around her. She has created little beings that are now under her control so that she can manipulate them to support the delusion of the way she sees the world. They become, just like the partner is also another piece in this, everyone's a pawn, right? Everyone's used to support the aggrandized self of the narcissistic mother, the controlling nature of the narcissistic mother, all of that. So I'm just going to read here a bit. The only thing, so basically, if you look at it like a play, the narcissistic mother is the director of this play. And she is conducting the play based on the roles she has put each of the children into, right? And her partner and friends and family members. This is a web. I always call it a narcissistic system when we're talking about family systems like this, because it really is. If one person changes, say you're an adult and you were the scapegoat, and you learn about narcissism and you go through, through your own healing, and you try to stay within the family and you keep mom at a distance and you do this, you're changing your role. You're changing, becoming yourself and becoming who you are as a healthy individual, and having boundaries and trying to have relationships with your siblings and your other parent or whatever you're doing. That messes up her play. That isn't part of the script that only she knows, okay? That is why they attack and they go after, and they can't allow for change. And also, the other people in the play, your siblings, your other parent, they get confused by the change because it doesn't fit in the system. So the system she's creating is a very toxic one, and it's very entrapping to everyone in the system. So understanding that, then we'll try to talk about the golden child and the role that they play and how it affects them as a human being. Not all of them become narcissists, okay? There's a lot of really amazing people that are not narcissistic who are golden children of narcissists. So don't think this is about attacking the golden child either. This is about seeing the cause of a really hard and difficult life that is then led later on by most golden children who are not narcissists. If they become narcissists, that's another topic for another day, and we know what that is, right? Okay. So this is also why so the system I'm talking about, this is also why if you're co-parenting with a narcissistic woman who is, or man, but if you're co-parenting, especially with the women, because of the way the women conduct the emotional life of the family. Does that make sense? Men have different sorts of control, and it just, fathers are seen differently, right? And there's a whole, you know what I'm trying to say here? It's a different role that the father plays. And so there's a whole nother, we could talk about a different topic there. But what I'm talking about here is the moms and the way that they infiltrate the emotional lives of the family. And when you're splitting from one, and when you are trying to divorce or trying to separate, and then you have to co-parent, or we know it's not co-parenting, we know it's parallel parenting, but it's very difficult because, again, you've changed the role. You've changed the role. You're no longer their person you're no longer their supply, right? When you leave the narcissistic mother, who is your ex, and you have a child with them, right? But that child is growing up with one narcissistic parent. So understanding this can be helpful, so that if you see the leanings of the golden child happening in that home, you can at least have a healthy understanding of what's going on with your kiddo in your home, and hopefully be able to, work with it from there in a compassionate way with the child. So, because it's not the kid's faults, right? It's not our faults. We're golden children. It's not our faults. We're placed in these roles. It happens from almost birth, right? The mom just chooses. All right. And what they do from birth, from very, very, very early on, is they will start imprinting. We are always imprinting on our children, right? The customs, the culture, the ways of being, the language, the speech patterns, everything we do in a family. You hear people talk and they have inflections and they have a cadence to their voice, and they have, all of that stuff is all from the imprinting that we get from our upbringing, right? That's why we have all of those attributes to ourself. Well, when you have a narcissistic mom doing the imprinting, what you have from birth is an imprinting designed to fit her delusion. It is, the child is being taught to play the part. Everyone, not just the golden child, every child who is raised by a narcissist is being taught to play a part in the delusional world that she's created. So the role she made for you, you got to fill. It's being imprinted, and you're being groomed into participating in it from such a young age. It's a horrible place to be as a golden child. And as a parent myself with a dominant wife, we are pressured to sort the children's behaviors and actions, and we do a lot of damage. Okay, so the other thing that is implanted in us from narcissistic parents and from the narcissistic mother, because of the way we expect a mother to nurture, we need that nurturing. We think about what you need from a mother. Most people come to me when they're in coaching and they say, I didn't have a mother. She was a narcissist. She never once, I never felt loved. I never felt affection. I never felt, what they start telling me is all these nurturing things. Usually when it's dads, they say things like, I didn't feel like he loved me. He never had my back. He didn't support me in the things that I did. So it's more action-based. Of course, men are nurturing. Of course, men are all these things as well. But it's sort of like the role we look to as children in a mother isn't there with a narcissistic mother. And so the child is pulling for their needs to be met because they're children and they are humans, right? And so they're pulling for these needs to be met. And instead they're getting this template of who they're supposed to be. You can have my love if you follow these rules. Even the scapegoat gets breadcrumbs. They may not look like love and they may not feel like love, but it's something in the child that it feels like survival. Okay, so we're learning to survive, we're seeking the love, and we're being groomed to have an inner dialogue in our heads that supports her delusion. We're being taught that we're not enough, that we need to be perfect. The golden child will be taught things like you need to be perfect or else. You're better than other people. You're better than that. There's a whole, we'll go into it in just a second, what it's like to be the golden child. But one thing that they are not allowed, one thing you're not allowed when you're raised by a narcissistic mother is the individuation that happens. The big word. It's the individuation that happens when you become a teenager and try and become your own person and allow your own self and personality to come forward. They will fake it by saying, oh, you're so this and you're so that. They'll describe you instead of letting you be you. Does that make sense? They will idealize a portion of your personality and claim that to be you. And if you stray from that, if you try things that are new, if you're an actual like teenager, right, you're not allowed to be. You have to follow that same pattern, or else you're doing something against them. You're hurting them. All the threats start coming in. Okay, because the narcissistic mom is a controlling and like very manipulative monster, really, of a mother that cannot allow for actual individual people to be in their home, to be in their world, to be their kids, right? Everything's an extension of themselves. They live vicariously through the golden child. They live vicariously in a negative way through the scapegoat. In other words, things they're projecting onto that scapegoat, they are vicariously forcing that child to experience their own inner negativity projected out onto that scapegoated child. That child vicariously lives out the negative life, right? Same thing on the other end, the golden child, they're projecting all their hopes, dreams, wishes, and inflated self and ego onto that golden child. That golden child is then forced to live this idealized and perfectionist sort of life based on somebody else's delusion. So their mother, right? And they don't even know it's happening because it's not bad in the sense of they're not being treated the worst in the family. Okay, one thing that a golden child has to see is their siblings being treated poorly, their siblings being abused, their siblings being treated in a way that is toxic, right? And the guilt, the shame, the fear, all of it lives inside of this golden child. I mean, can you imagine that you are watching, if you do something wrong, baby brother gets it. If you are bratty or whatever, you're just like being a kid, baby sister or big sister takes the fall because you can't, because narc mom can't see you as anything other than the perfect child, or it's clearly their fault that they made you act this way, right? And so then you, as the golden child, are watching other people take the fall for you. And that doesn't feel good to anyone with empathy. Now, if a person doesn't have empathy, they're low empathy, or there's other abuses going on, or really insidious golden child, it just depends on what makes that golden child become a narcissist. They don't all. In fact, a lot of them don't. I don't want to say most. I don't know the statistics. I just know plenty of amazing survivors of this narcissistic web, right? That were the golden child. It's not a pretty place to be. It is always under the spotlight. It's always in the mother's view. It's always in the narcissistic mother and control of the golden child. See, the scapegoat, they control you through your self-worth. That's not pretty either, but the control of the narcissistic mother with the golden child, because she's so tied to she is so tied to them in the sense of living vicariously through them, an extension of herself. The control is like literally micromanaging every movement they make. They can't do a thing. All their friends are bad. All their relations are bad. The other parents bad. Everything's bad except for them. And in order to stay in good graces, in order to not be abused for survival purposes, that golden child is forced into a position of defending the narcissistic mother, of silence, of perfectionism in oneself, overgiving, overcompensating in the sense of like really being a people pleasing, what's the word? Peacekeeper, right? Because you just needed to calm. You just needed to stay calm. So let's talk about some of the stuff that happens for a golden child. So growing up and as an adult, growing up the golden child and then becoming adult is what I'm trying to say. Some of the things, I'm just going to go through a list here. Some of the things that a person might experience are an inflated ego and an uplifted sense of self and their self-importance in situations. Now, remember, I'm not saying these are all going to be traits that sound like a narcissist. Okay. I'm not saying the golden child's a narcissist. What I'm saying is think of it like fleas, like narcissistic fleas. It's because of the belief system set up in their heads. Instead of feeling low self-esteem, they feel inflated self-esteem and inflated self-worth, right? Everyone has a grand and great amount of self-worth. What I'm talking about is egotistical. Okay. That's different. Conditioned to be abused. Yeah. It's awful. So the other thing is jealousy, even over petty things. A narcissist, a golden child can feel a great amount of jealousy because if the attention goes positively toward anyone else, how would that ensure survival? See, they're being taught that survival means perfection and being the best in mommy's eyes, right? The best of anyone in mommy's eyes. If anyone else even has a birthday, even has a, something to be proud of, and anyone compliments them, especially if it's the mother, but even more so if it's the other parent. So say the other parent sees it and is trying to compensate by being very sweet and very compassionate with the other kids because this mommy's got that one, right? The jealousy that comes in, because it's not in a narcissistic way per se, it's in a survival way. Because if that child isn't the role that the mother has put him in, you know what I mean? Like if they aren't the center, if they aren't the perfect one, then their survival's at stake because mom will attack, right, in the kid's head, right? So that makes sense to me. So another thing is people pleasing and enabling. People pleasing and enabling. Well, you can see why they would have that. They have to please mom, the mommy dearest, right? All the time. Pleasing. If mom's mad, she's going to yell. She's going to scream. They do get it. They do get yelled at. They do get screamed at. They do take the brunt of it. They just always get pushed back up onto that pedestal right afterwards. The love bomb and the devalue cycle is more extreme for the golden child, I would say. And for the scapegoat, it's more on the sense of constant devaluing. And no achievement ever acknowledged. Exactly. No achievement is ever acknowledged unless it's the achievement that she placed in front of you because it's the one she wanted you to have. And then it's not acknowledged in a real and healthy way, right? Okay. So, or it's so inflated, like, oh, my kid is the best, whatever, and you're sitting there going, well, no, I'm actually just, I'm pretty good. But you hear it enough, you think I'm the best. Right? And we think that we are that can sound like, well, yeah, I mean, we all want to give our kids a good self-esteem. We want them to know they're good at things. It's done really differently with a narcissistic mom. It is literally everyone else, you just suck, that my kid's the only one, and what does that teach anyone, right? That is not, so, because of it all, the enabling is there. The defense of the narcissistic mother, always coming to her rescue. Poor mom. No one understands her. She, the giving in, if you have one that plays victim, a narcissistic mother that plays the victim, they'll be the one there to, everyone's trying to fix it in their own way. So they aren't exempt from the people pleasing and enabling that the scapegoat also feels. Okay. Another thing that can happen is infantilization and learned helplessness, because the narcissistic mother needs to control absolutely everything for the golden child. For some golden children, there's another type that will not, and we'll talk about that next. They are often, if you knew them as kids and you see them grown up, you can recall things like acting younger than their age when they want attention. So in other words, completely capable and able to do things. As soon as they want attention, that mommy, like they turn into babies because it gets mommy's attention. It softens the narcissist when she is on the rampage at other people. It softens the narcissist toward them. Does that make sense? This is all about survival. It's all about surviving a life with a narcissistic mother. So they also, because of the perfectionist thing, they will often, the narcissistic mother will not, like you said here, Jack, not acknowledge achievements, but also so set standards where it looks like the child is having achievements. I'm trying to think of a good example. Say teaching a child a skill, and the child is really good at this skill. They can do this skill really well, and they're doing it. And so there is this achievement. They have this feeling of achievement, like, oh, it's great. But that skill is always tied back to something that the mother has control over. So there isn't actual individualization there and self-motivation and all of that. It's all tied back to, was that good, Mom? Did I do it right, Mom? Does that make sense? So, okay. Let's see. They may feel a lack of identity from the reprimand putting on a pedestal. Basically, I think of sort of, when I think of like the old Leave It to Beaver shows, and Eddie Haskell, that's what I picture. Like, he must have been a golden child because he knows how to put on the charm, and he knows how to behave one way when someone's looking, and then when someone's not looking, he's something else. And they have to put on a face in front of mom, in front of the narcissistic parent, in order to survive and maintain their status as the golden child, because they have to keep that, because it's survival, because they don't want to be in the place that they see their brothers and sisters, right? Or if they're an only child, they may play both, right? And it may be, and usually it can be golden child, or it's one or the other leaning. And then, so if they're only, it can be like way more golden child, but then when they get the fury, they get all the fury, because there's no one else to put it on. There's no other. So when they play that scapegoat role for a little while, it goes way down. And then the other way around, if they are the scapegoat and all of a sudden mom is showering them with gifts, and you're going, wait, you don't even like me. Why are you giving me gifts? Right. So, anyway, so what did I write here? Let's see. Oh, okay. Sometimes they will take on the role. Well, a golden child may be placed in the position of parenting the narcissist, always caretaking, always having to parent, always being like, the narcissistic mother may come to them for problems. Please help, like act helpless toward the golden child, and the golden child has to then fix it, or else. They do this also to the scapegoat, but it's done differently. It's with this, it's almost like why wouldn't you do it? You've been, it's not, oh gosh, here comes mom again. It's, oh, well, mom needs this. It's part of the enabling that they do. So the golden child is taught to be a surrogate spouse often, and this is the sickest to me. Okay. They will say the narcissistic woman has a partner, or is divorced, or has alone, single, whatever, or has a partner that is absent for good reason, probably, or travels or whatever. So she is alone with the golden child, or the children plus the golden child. They will place that child, the golden child, in the position of, if let's just say it's a boy child, the man of the house. And, or they will do things like, could be anything from bringing that child even to bed with them, right, to sleep, or it could be bringing that child into adult interactions that you would have a spouse with you for, like discussions or whatever, and relying on that child as if they are an adult partner. They might have expectations of, and usually it's this, like expectations of emotional connection, so to speak, that you might have with a spouse, like dumping all your problems on this kid and expecting that kid to have some response and sit there and and hear you, right? That's what the narcissistic mother, often they, they have that need to be the center and to be heard. That's a whole topic in itself, the surrogate spouse thing. I have talked to a lot of people and have had clients ask about their narcissistic male partner, asking, that saying he had a narcissistic mother. So he is the son of a narcissist. He was the golden child. He's a narcissist himself. And it's like he's her husband. That's what that's about. Okay. It's gross. And it's psychologically Okay. So another thing would be, another thing a golden child might feel is overly prideful, egotistical. We talked about that. They smile through things often. We all do this, but there's a difference in it. They'll smile when people are looking. They have to present as if they are. Think about it. Well, often the narcissistic mother needs her world to look perfect. She needs the rest of the world to think her house is perfect, her home is perfect, her kid is perfect. She can scapegoat one or many and say, oh, something's with them, but this one's perfect, right? So this child learns they have to smile and be perfect, no matter what they feel, no matter what they think. And at the same time, they might be teaching that child, you need to speak up and speak your mind. So what kind of conflicted message is that? You better look perfect and you better act perfect, but you better speak your mind and be strong and not let people walk all over you. Basically, that's creating a narcissist, right? So, okay. They're peacekeepers. They often are peacekeepers, and we talked about why, right? Because it's about survival, and it's about the need to survive the narcissistic mother and not get out of her good graces, right? And to protect siblings and to protect other people. We're not talking about raising golden childs who become narcissists. We're just talking about it in general, right? So we got to assume a majority of people are good people. They are being abused by being overly important to a narcissist. It's a horrible place, right? It is the seat of importance. It's the seat of importance and the place of where that narcissistic mother is projecting all of her needs for her own life through you. Okay. They tend to be judgmental because, well, they're being taught to be judgmental, right? Everyone else is bad. You're good. They learn conditional love. And this is so sad because we're not talking about people without empathy. I'm speaking about the golden child who is a survivor of this and is feeling like, why can't I understand love? Love always feels like it's going to be taken away. It feels intermittent. Well, we all feel that when we've been raised by narcissism, right? But you see, to them, the love felt real. Imagine if you've been in a relationship with a narcissist, the height of love bombing, the idealization phase, when everything was perfect and everything was wonderful. And if that was your upbringing all the time, and you only had the rage and the attacks and you saw it going toward other people more than you had it coming toward yourself. So you know it's there. And then you think, well, that's just mom. That's just how she is. You're not seeing that it's actually hurting you and toxic for you because it's not really happening to you. You see that it's just her and she's got problems, but she's pretty good to me. But it's, so the unconditional love and the intermittent reinforcement causes a very difficult life for a child survivor of who was the golden child, because they were given all the love bombing of the family. And so they learn that it's totally conditional. Horrible. It takes years and years to see it and break free from it in them and everyone, saying Jack. Okay. A little bit more. The comparative mindset is another thing a golden child learns. So you grow up learning to compare yourself to everybody else. Again, everyone does this when they've been raised by a narcissist. The difference being, you actually were compared, only you were the best. So you got to maintain that your whole life, because the belief is up here that if I don't, I'm not worthy of love. I'm not worthy. I can't survive, right? The perfectionism. This is big. This comes in a lot of people who were raised by narcissism, perfectionism. With the golden child, the perfectionism is life or death, right? To them. It's not about, I'm not worthy. Oh gosh, I didn't do that right. Like, it looks completely different. In fact, I've talked to people and I've asked them, well, why are you feeling like you need to be perfect? And they say, I've never felt I need to be perfect, because they were the scapegoat. But they don't realize that's also perfectionism, what they're talking about. Totally different. Perfectionism meaning the true and more common description of perfectionism you find in the child who was the golden child. So another thing, and this is going to sound like I'm calling them a narcissist, and I'm not, although a lot of them do become, right, is the mask wearing. You have to wear a mask. You go home to visit narcissistic mom, you put the mask on that suits the room, right? We all have to a little, because we have to play the role. But theirs is drastically different from who they might be, because they really, really didn't have a chance to be themselves. The scapegoat doesn't have a chance to be themselves because they're put down. They're put down, but they're kind of left alone. Does that make sense? They feel alone. And I'm not saying it's any better to be a scapegoat, because it isn't. It's awful, right? But for the golden child, the masks and the inability to be oneself. Like I said earlier, they have a difficult time often having a sense of self, because that mother has vicariously lived through them and controlled their every move. I mean, down to things, like I said, like they can't even have a friend that's good enough for them unless the mother picks it out. They can't, the way they dress, the activities they do, the choices they make, the everything. And you're talking about young adults having this happen and continuing to have this happen. And you think back, well, I always wanted to wear my hair in braids, and she'd never let me, but she'd put my sister's hair in braids, but she didn't like my sister. She was really mean to my sister, but she said my hair was this whatever color and it needed to be long and this way, but I didn't want it that way. You weren't allowed. You had to be the perfect doll that your mother or, whatever. Okay. So as children and then as adults, the golden child, so if you see a child being raised by a narcissistic mother, lack of boundaries is a big one. They tend to not have a sense of where they end and other people start, again, because they've been enmeshed and they're being lived through by a controlling female narcissist. And so the lack of boundaries, and then they learn manipulative techniques to get their way. And it's usually temper tantrums or aggressive verbal behavior that they learned from, like fleas type behavior that they learned from the narcissistic mother. Or it could be in the form of behaving like an infant, someone much younger, or manipulating through sticky sweetness once they know that other people are mad at them or upset with them or, not happy with their behavior. So, and the scapegoat is different because they tend to accept the fact that they're never good enough anyway, and maybe people please, maybe, fawn and do other things, but there's less of the, basically what you see is bratty behavior. That's the only word I can think to put on it that simplifies it, right? And they use it to manipulate, because they aren't, to their credit, they're not being shown how to have a healthy exchange where sometimes you don't get your way, because they always get their way, as long as their way suits the mother's role. And they learn very quickly how to make their way fit into the mother's mold. Does that make sense? How to make the two worlds be one, so that they can also feel good in life and get what the things they want. All right. Wonder what I wrote there. Oh, stunted. I'm like emotionally hunted, emotionally stunted. And we just kind of described that, right? They have a difficult time being alone, because especially, you'll see it in the children when they are children, and then again as adults, because, well, how could they be? They aren't alone. They're never alone. They're always under mommy's control. They tend to project because they are taught by mom that is how you get your way. They're taught that we blame others, we don't take accountability, and we project everything we are experiencing or the bad stuff about us onto other people, so that we can point the finger and get away with it and not have to take accountability. They have a difficult time with accountability as well. However, a survivor who was the golden child or is the golden child can and has empathy, isn't a narcissist, can learn to take accountability just like the rest of us. It's difficult for everyone, right? It's not a fun thing, but a lot of times they will be very much the child that likes the gifts. They want the gifts. They want the stuff. Okay. Because they're given the gifts, and they're taught that gifts equal love. Okay. They're given the better stuff of the other, compared to other people. So, and they're not taught to share, because the narcissistic mother doesn't want them to share. The narcissistic mother wants this role to be in place as it is, because this is how she wants her family to look. Okay. So like I said, it's very sad in the sense of they see their siblings being hurt, and they see their siblings having to deal with the other side of things, the scapegoat side of things, the lost child side of things. And it can cause a ton of guilt and shame and fear in that golden child. So, it makes sense. Let's see. Yeah. And that's pretty much what I got here about golden child today and the narcissistic mother and how it kind of, so do you guys have anything you want to add? Anyone who's watching? I know I didn't announce this, so there's not going to be a whole lot of people in here, but let's see. The perfectionism as an adult is real, said Robin. Load, so you can just keep going, keep at it. So again, okay, well, I'm going to take off here and wrap this up. If you have anything you want to add to this, or if you have any anything you can think about, if you were or you watched one of your siblings be the golden child and how it affected them, and if you can see exactly what mom's behaviors and mom's interactions with the family created in them, put it in the comments. You know what I'm saying? It's good to understand, so that we can understand why these things are within ourselves or yourselves or other people or siblings, and how to then understand how to relate to yourself or others based on the programming that was put in there from these narcissistic mothers. Okay. Yeah, what a healing journey it's been. It's a lot, I know. Okay, otherwise I'll be back later and with the live, hopefully this week, if not next week. And I hope you take care. If you need any coaching or anything, all the information's in the description of every video. Hit subscribe, thumbs up. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.